Hello and welcome to my channel. I am the Mad Computer Scientist. On this channel I discuss math, computer science, and technology topics that are of interest to me. But before we begin today's video, if you are new here, I'd like you to do me a favor and hit the subscribe button. If you hit the subscribe button, be sure to smash that notification bell so that you will always receive my latest updates. We currently have as many channels, or nearly as many channels, as my previous channel did that I had to abandon. I would like to actually surpass that. But we will not do anything special until we hit the 512 subscriber mark. And now that I have taken enough of your time, let's get into the topic of today's video. Today we're actually going to define what computer science is, and of course, we're going to discuss whether or not computer science is actually a science. Let us begin by defining what the term computer science means. And I am pulling my definition from the Minnesota of Duluth website, and it's a fairly simple definition that you can find almost anywhere. Their website defines computer science as the study of computers and computational systems, so it covers most interactions involving computers. As you can tell, this is a rather broad definition, and this causes people to lump in things that even computer scientists wouldn't necessarily consider part of their field as part of their field. A most common misunderstanding is that someone who does IT support is doing some form of computer science. Usually what they're doing is some form of hardware repair, or at least trying to figure out what something did wrong with the software, which is usually a setup issue. We can also define computer science as the use of computing systems to solve real-world problems, and this seems like a fairly accurate definition. I'm not going to delve too deeply into what computer science is, because these definitions work well for most instances. Let's go on to the next part. Often people wonder, is computer science actually a science? There is a very old quote that anything with science in the name is not actually a science. And indeed, there are software engineers that I personally know who will group computer science out of the sciences simply because of this definition. It's not entirely correct, though. What most people say when they ask if something is a science is if a subject belongs to one of the hard sciences. For those of you who need a refresher, the hard sciences are generally physics, chemistry, and biology. For any physicist, geologist, or even some sort of neurologist who wants to say I'm excluding them with this definition, I am not. All of your fields are basically subfields of one of those three. People using this definition are using a more colloquial definition that excludes the social sciences because most people don't consider the social sciences to be in the same category. That means if you were to come up to me on the street and ask me if computer science were a science, I would probably tell you no, because I assume you mean hard science, because that's the way we use it in everyday usage. Now, if you're asking for a more broader definition, that's where things get a lot more complicated. And by the way, the reason I'm excluding computer science from the hard sciences is because we don't do experiments. Or at least we do, but not really in the same way. Because usually what we're more concerned with is coming up with proof of our ideas, and that puts us in a category with another thing most people don't consider to be a science, but most definitely is if you expand your definition. The particularly astute observer has already guessed where I am going with this. I have mentioned proofs after all, and computer science is one of the two fields, possibly three if you include logic, where you can prove something absolutely. So where does computer science belong in the sciences? It belongs as an offshoot of math, which it most definitely is. Now, this doesn't necessarily place it under mathematics and STEM, because the truth is, if you're going to ask where computer science belongs in STEM, depending on what you're doing, can belong to any of the four categories. If you expand it to STEAM, it can also be considered art for applications like video games. That is it for this video. I would like to thank everyone for listening to this point, and I know The end of this video is just going to be a spiel, doing what I already asked you to do at the beginning of the video, and that is to like, comment, and subscribe. I would also like to thank all the subscribers who have stuck with me to this point, and may we get to 512 subscribers soon.